Hello, hello, and excuse me. Welcome to Tuesdays with Dr. Susan, but also on a Friday. I don't know if you've ever seen the Lego movie, but that's what popped into my head. We are excited to talk about back to school strategies and answer some of our frequently asked questions. If you have any more questions, please feel free to put them into the chat. And I will go ahead and run the intro and bring Susan on, and we will get going. Hi, I'm Nicole, and as you have probably guessed, I have ADHD. I live and breathe all things ADHD in my personal, family, and professional life. I have a background in psychology and special education, and I've gained a lot of knowledge over the years about ADHD, what it really is, how it touches every aspect of your life and the life of your child, as well as a wealth of information and strategies for living with ADHD and parenting kids with ADHD. In this community, we share stories, we learn together, and we support each other as we navigate all things ADHD. Welcome. Oh, well, hello, friend.
Hello, my dear.
How are we doing?
We are doing well on this Friday afternoon.
Yes, Friday. Although it's marching band season, so we got a football game tonight.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Always. It is a very busy season for my kids and now for me because I get overly involved in whatever my kids are doing. And so, of course, I'm the fundraising chairperson and on the uniforms crew and help with the trailer and all of the things. So
you are
it's a busy
amazing.
time for me too.
I was a ice hockey
That's a good
mom,
one.
but I wasn't that involved. I refused.
Well, I first offered to do the photography at the competitions. And so then I was just there all the time, and I'm only taking pictures, during their performance and a few kind of at setup and things. And so I figured, well, I might as well be useful. And then now here I am.
Here you are.
But yes, back to school time. My favorite part of back to school time is school supply shopping. And then I get to get things for me.
Oh, I love multicolored pens.
These are my favorite pens, the Ink Joys.
Yes.
And we have new ones in different colors this year.
So I admit to buying myself a new set every couple of years because I use them up.
Yes, they're my favorite.
One of the things we'll talk about back to school, I am super into color coding.
Yes.
Color coding is my go-to.
Yes, it was, well, we'll talk about that. I have a funny example. One of my kids, when we were trying to get his folders set up for the year. So I guess let's just jump right in with getting our kids ready for back to school.
Yes. Now, we had some questions that I've had come up with clients and on my support groups. Did you pick one to start with, or shall I?
Go for it.
Okay. So one of the big questions that have come up for my parent support groups is, how do you manage textbooks, backpacks, binders, school supplies? Because our kids lose things.
Yes.
And they have great difficulty managing what's in their backpacks, what's in their lockers, what do they leave home. So this is both a question of executive functioning skills, having too much to carry, especially if they're in middle school and high school with multiple classes.
Yes.
And teachers who have different expectations about what they need for each class. So I have multiple answers to this question. Now, when my kids were in school, so Nicole, I have to ask you about your school district.
Yeah.
They didn't allow the kids to carry their backpacks into the classroom. Do you have that rule?
No.
Okay, so when my daughter was in high school, they had a rule that you couldn't carry your backpack into the classroom.
Oh boy.
Everything was supposed to be in their locker, and they were supposed to go to their locker during their 4-minute passing period and
Right.
change out what binder and textbooks they had. Well, that was never going to work for my daughter and many of my clients. So I actually had an accommodation written into her IEP because one, she couldn't wear a backpack. She had a rolly bag because she had her laptop. She had her textbooks and binders. There was no way she was going to go back to her in passing period. She could barely find her way around this enormous high school and stop at her locker between every class without getting lost. So we wrote an accommodation into her IEP that not only could she have her rolly backpack, she could take it into every class with her, because otherwise she was going to drop her laptop anytime she got hit in the hallway, get bumped in that busy hallway. She was going to crash that laptop onto the floor, and that she wasn't capable of making the time to stop at her locker between every class without getting lost and flustered, starting off each class in a bad state of mind, and that it wasn't a reasonable expectation given her disabilities. So an accommodation of having your backpack in class is easily written into the IEP.
I would say also you could request a locker that's in a central location if your kid doesn't want to carry a backpack around, but they are going to struggle getting all the way down this hall and then to this class over here. I mean, at our schools, it would just not work. We have 1,800 kids at our middle school and like 3,200 at our high school in just grades 10 through 12. And I would say 90% of the kids don't even get a locker anymore. They just carry everything around. They also have A and B days, so they're only carrying half a day's of stuff, not 7 to 8 classes worth of stuff. I could never have done it when I was in high school. We also had textbooks, and they now just have Chromebooks, so they don't have as quite as heavy of things to carry around anymore. But
so textbooks are another good question. So for many of my clients, I get a second set of textbooks for them to keep at home, so they do not have to carry books back and forth between home and school, which is another recipe for disaster because they lose them or they forget to bring home the correct textbook for the homework they've been assigned. Thirdly, binders. So if our kids are working online, or if they're not in a school where every kid is assigned a Chromebook, my daughter was not, it was a few years ago, she brought in her own laptop as an accommodation because she couldn't handwrite notes, and therefore she was taking notes on her laptop. Not every school yet has a Chromebook or iPad assigned to every kid, so she had an accommodation of using a laptop. I said, absolutely no handwritten notes, absolutely no binders. Every school teacher's PowerPoint, any notes or handouts had to be sent to her electronically. So no binders in any classes whatsoever, a simple folder to get any papers that had to come home. And otherwise, everything was electronically in her laptop. Suddenly, her backpack was really empty. And it made her life much, much easier. These are all common accommodations for kids with autism, ADHD, almost any learning disability. These are all accommodations you can have.
Yeah, so I guess maybe the first, thing for getting ready for back to school is checking out what's going on at the school. If you're at a new school, or even if you just have a new set of teachers, and figuring out what kinds of accommodations your kiddo is going to need. So just because you had a 504 that was working last year doesn't mean that those same accommodations are going to meet all of the needs in the new year. And if you see something that sticks out, especially in those transitions between middle school or elementary to middle school to high school, where they're in a different environment, and with different task demands, figuring out, what accommodations do we need to add, and having that meeting right at the beginning of school year, and then possibly in a couple of weeks into the school year to review and see if everything's working. So you don't have to wait until that IEP meeting, that happens at the same time every year, or for a 504 meeting to be called by the school. You as a parent can request to meet with the team at any time to make those changes.
Absolutely. I have a client who just wrote a letter to the school on Wednesday. After 1 week of school, the student is still not able to find all their classes and has been consistently late to every single class in their high school and is having increasing anxiety because there was no plan made to help her find her way around the school. And so is starting to show signs of school refusal because she is feeling so overwhelmed, because not only is she not getting support to find the classes, teachers are coming down on her in a negative way for being late instead of looking for the cause. What's going on? Well, this is a child with cognitive and emotional disabilities, as well as attention and focus issues. And instead of somebody reaching out to help, she's getting pounded with disciplinary referrals for being late to every single class the entire first week of school. Mm-hmm. Parents didn't even consult me as the advocate. They already know what to do.
I've been working. You've trained them well.
Since she was in 3rd grade. Now she's in 9th grade. They wrote a very clear letter saying, these are the issues, these are the reasons, and this is the intervention we're looking for. And I wrote in yesterday and said, I didn't see a response. What's going on? And they told me everybody jumped right to it. They asked for her to be allowed 2 minutes early before the bell goes off, so she has extra time before the hallways are crowded. They insisted that the special education case manager and the vice principal write to every teacher that she is not to be listed as tardy if she's late to class, that no disciplinary action be taken. They reminded that every teacher needed to be given the accommodations list. And lo and behold, within 2 days, kids doing better. So there's just a lot of action that we as parents can take when our kids are overwhelmed by the materials they have, by the passing periods, and by making sure that teachers are educated about the needs and about the accommodations our students are entitled to. So that includes things like if they don't have their school supplies, right? It's important that they not be disciplined, but that the teacher find out why. Maybe the stuff is stuck in the locker and the student didn't get there because they can't handle passing period. Maybe it's because they need more than 4 minutes to get from one end to another of a school that has 3,000 students in it. Maybe they need, one of the things this family asked for is a passing buddy. A student needs to be assigned, a peer needs to be assigned to walk the student from class to class until the anxious student with a disability can manage it on their own. These are all really helpful things and not difficult for a school to implement.
Right. Another thing I might add to that, is something that we do. All the schools are going to have their back to school night, right? Where you get to go and kind of see where all your classes are and meet your teachers. But that is oftentimes not sufficient for our kids. And it's overwhelming because there might be 1,000 people in the building while they're trying to do it. So setting up a time with the school for you to come outside of that back to school time when things are calm, walk that path. Okay, you're going to go to this class and then your locker's here and then you go here, and get the kid comfortable with the environment beforehand before it's full of thousands of kids and is completely
I recommend doing that the day before school starts. Teachers are there for their development day, but getting someone to walk the student through and even give them a map of the school and walk them while the halls are empty is absolutely one of the most helpful things.
Yeah, we had a head custodian that helped us out.
How nice.
It was awesome. It was a great person for my son to get to know as well, because Like there's a guy who has information all the time and is always around, so you make buddies with him, and it was a
You
great
never know who the
situation.
safe person is going to be.
Right.
You know, I have a student right now who needs a safe person. And we don't know who. It's a new school. He also just started high school. So he's dealing with all new staff. And again, 1 week in, school refusal because of anxiety. Classes are much harder. He has one-on-one. He has his ABA staff from home that family is paying for, attend his first 2 classes of the day, which are his 2 hardest classes. But occasionally they can't be there if somebody had a family emergency. And we don't know who in the school yet is his safe person. You know, they're offering several different people, the special ed classroom teacher, the vice principal, the school counselor, but he hasn't bonded with anybody yet. So we don't know who's available. And so the family and I have written several letters already to the school. And it turns out there's a para, not specifically assigned to him, but a para in a couple of his other classes that he's come home and said, wow, I really like this person. So we've written into the school and said, if his regular one-on-one isn't available, could this para, you know, step in on an emergency basis? Turns out he likes her better than some of the other staff. You know, so it's being really flexible and working with the environment. So the custodian is a great choice if that's the safe person that you're.
Well, it ended up being a great little connection to have on the multiple occasions when my son would leave his trombone in a hallway somewhere or his backpack. And, you know, he already knew the guy who was going to find the things and where he was going to put them. And so, yeah, it was a good situation for a little while there.
Excellent. You know, schools need to be really flexible about who that safe person is going to be. And that's sometimes hard for schools. But our kids bond with who they're going to bond with, and we have to let ourselves be student-led.
Right.
So related to that, this student that I'm talking about and the first student I mentioned who was getting lost, a lot of schools want to offer something called break passes, which are sort of like a permanent hallway pass. It's a wonderful tool and accommodation. And so I want to explain them and talk about why they're useful for so many of our students. More schools should use them. So what happens is when you have a break pass, some schools call them chill passes, which I think is also a brilliant name, is that the student themselves or the para or the teacher can all identify. We teach the adults to identify when the student is experiencing emotional dysregulation, sensory dysregulation, you know, academic dysregulation, and recognize the signs, because not all teachers and paras are used to identifying those signs of overload or overwhelm. They can be different in different students. So you have to identify them for this particular student. What are the signs? Because you can have withdrawal, you can have acting out, you can have what's the word I want? Stimming. You can have all different signs for a particular student. So we have to identify that in writing. And this chill pass or break pass allows the student to leave the room with permission and either go to their safe person or some other safe space, such as a sensory room. If the OT in a school has a sensory room where they can take a short movement break, or they can go to the library if that's their safe space. They can go to the principal's office if that's a safe space. They can go to the counselor's office. So you can see we can identify 3 or 4 different spaces as long as the teacher or the para who is monitoring the child can either accompany the child or knows where the child is going. Depends on the age and maturity of the child, whether they're allowed to go alone. And this
oftentimes they'll give them the accommodation of taking a break whenever they want, but if the child has to use communication in order to get that, that can become a hurdle to them taking the break. So at our school, they give them just a little card that they keep in their backpack, and if they need to use it, they just hold it up and they can leave.
Exactly. That's what I mean by the chill pass or the break pass. And all they have to do is, again, maybe a para accompanies them to see that they're safely, they haven't eloped, they haven't left the building, they're safely in the identified space. And I've given examples of 4 or 5 safe spaces that a given student can be accompanied to, so that they're safely in the building, they've been delivered to some other adult, but they're out of the classroom for some period of time. And they either can use that time just to re-regulate, or they can do their academic work in that space. So I have a student who takes his academic work with him, but does it in the special ed teacher's room, because overwhelmed by the classroom, too many people,
more controlled environment, it's not as noisy.
Exactly. And can accomplish more of his work as long as he's in another space. But at other times, when he's sensory or emotionally dysregulated, needs to go to the sensory room or to the office and just sit quietly. Maybe, do something on his computer that isn't necessarily academic work. But that has to be planned in advance. We have to know the difference. And again, the child doesn't get penalized for that because he has permission with that card to take that break. And this is a fabulous accommodation for our kids, I want to say, who are also experiencing anxiety. So this kid who has autism and neurological deficits gets overwhelmed by academic work that's above his level. So he simply can't tolerate the academic work. And so he has to have the ability to step out of an academic class until his anxiety is soothed.
Right. Because when your brain's in that state, nothing's getting in.
That's right. And we've had problems with previous schools and principals who simply felt that it was inappropriate to allow him to what they called avoid academics, like that was a punishable offense. But what they didn't understand is that his brain, there's a wonderful, I think it's Gary Larson cartoon that I always talk about. And this big fat boy with this teeny little pinhead raises his hand and says, "Teacher, may I be excused? My brain is full." It's one of my favorite cartoons. And that's what happens. Sometimes a kid can make it through a 45-minute lesson, and sometimes they can make it 10 minutes. Their brain is full, and they deserve to be excused, because otherwise their anxiety, their emotional dysregulation, everything else is going to interfere with their learning. We have to learn to recognize when their brain is full and allow them their ability to re-regulate.
And, there is the occasional kid who will abuse that kind of a system, but that is something you can address behaviorally if it shows up. It's not a reason to not give the accommodation in the first place.
Exactly.
We don't proactively say, well, then he's going to avoid work. Well, we don't know that.
No. And if he is avoiding work, we don't discipline him for his disability. We find out why he's avoiding
the work. What's happening that's making it so this kid doesn't want to learn.
Exactly. So I've had something else come up in my support groups that I think is relevant to back to school. And that is with students on IEPs or students who are on alternative tracks. And parents are saying that they're having to give up electives like chorus or music or even language classes in order to be placed into what they're considered global skills classes or resource room or even a career-related class. And so parents are complaining in my support groups online about why they're being forced to give up classes their kids really want to take: computer science, orchestra, band, in order to get placed in special ed classes, which are only being offered at the same time as electives. So in one case, a kid was being forced to take his quote unquote age appropriate math class, like ninth grade math, even though he was not functioning at the ninth grade level. He was at a third or fourth grade level and required placement in a special ed math class. But the special ed math class was only offered at the same time as a music class or chorus class, whatever it was. And so he was required to take his ninth grade math class where he could not function and the special ed math class instead of taking an elective, which made no sense to the family or me because he really only needed to be placed in the special ed math class. He really didn't need to be in the ninth grade math class because he needed an entirely modified curriculum. And so he was missing out on the electives, which is the hot thing to do when you're in high school. Everybody goes to high school to take these great electives, right? And so,
and those are the places where our kids who struggle so much can actually find something that will keep them going to school.
Exactly. A mom just posted in one of my Facebook groups that the kid really wants to take a health tech class. She'd like to be a nurse in college, and she has a chance to take a health technician course in high school, and it's only offered at the same time as chorus. So the issue is she's really been into chorus. She's been taking chorus for several years. The mom was in chorus. It meant a lot to her. She's very upset that these kinds of career-oriented classes are only being offered in, elective slots. Again, the issue is, how do we manage for kids who feel like they're having to miss out on the fun stuff in high school in order to be placed in, trade courses, special ed courses? This is a difficult question.
Yeah.
But the hardest one for me is when the global skills courses, the special ed courses, and the resource room courses are the ones placed in the elective slots.
Because you kind of have two different things going on there, because the technical programs are elective programs, right? So at some point we have to make difficult decisions of, are we going to take the fun class, or are we going to get some of the technical training or the college classes done early? But the other problem of, well, we only offer this special ed class at this time, so you have to do this and you are now being limited from other things. That's a different issue.
Yeah, I'm bringing up both of them because this is what I'm hearing parents talk about. I think schools really need to rethink, when classes are offered, because special ed, what they call global skills or resource room, should not be, I believe, offered in place of electives for kids with special needs. I think it treats them like second-class citizens.
Yes. And again, we really want to let our kids do those other classes, find the places, because those are the things that get them through the other classes. We make a lot of adaptations to my son's schedule so they can take all the band classes they want, especially my middle son, who is extremely musically gifted. Like, that is his his second exceptionality is in music. And so, we have had to move some things around, opt him out of some classes, do some classes online and with, a guided studies teacher, because they're not offered at the right time. And so that he can take this year he's only in 3 music classes. Last year he was in 5. So we've got to, but without those music classes, school is punishing, right?
Right.
So working with the schools to find a way for our kids to get their services met without them having to sacrifice on the things that bring them joy, the things that bring them to school every day, the places where they find their community, they find their people, their social network, their like those are extremely important in the
Agreed.
mental health of our kids.
Agreed. And you just said, I think, one of the key words, which is the mental health of our kids. I think schools feel their hands are tied because of the Common Core standards or their graduation standards, but they don't take into account for our kids with some special needs, not just their disabilities, but also their giftedness, that accommodations have to be made. So like having a kid who needs special needs math and making them take 2 math classes, a 9th grade math class that they cannot succeed in, plus the resource math, makes no sense to me. Seems a waste of their time. And strictly insisting on that instead of accommodating what their actual needs are, seems to me that they're punishing the student.
Okay, so what would you do in that situation?
Yeah.
How would you approach it?
So I went in and advocated in exactly that manner. I asked why they placed the child in the 9th grade math when all their testing, their school testing, showed that the student was not capable. I asked them to make a case for 9th grade math that had something to do with the individualized needs of the child versus their graduation standards. And so they couldn't support it. They were doing it strictly off, well, he's in 9th grade, he has to take 9th grade math. So I asked them to show in their evaluation a case for the kid to be in 9th grade math for the individualized need of the child. And they couldn't. He didn't belong there.
Right.
So we were able to make the case that he had to be in the resource math with a special education teacher that was meeting his individual needs. But the parents couldn't do that. They needed me as an advocate to do it.
Right.
And so we were able to get him placed in an appropriate math class, one math class, and then he was able to take an elective.
Right. So for parents, if you're in this sort of situation, find an advocate. There are free advocates and paid advocates available. There's lots of ways to find them. If you need help finding one, you can reach out to either of us and we can help you.
Yes.
But I want to know that you can go up that chain,
Yes.
You
and
can
notice
say
what the argument was. They have to make a case for it based on their evaluation results.
Right.
And if you disagree with the results of their evaluation, we've told you this in this podcast many times before, you're entitled to a free educational evaluation with an evaluator of your choice that the school pays for at a reasonable cost. $3,000 to $5,000 is the going rate. School has to pay for it, and you can fight back against the school's decision. But the way to do that is to find an advocate who can help you make those arguments. But it's very important that you don't have to settle for nonsensical decisions like that.
Yep.
Now, in the other situation, I've had numerous high school students who do a half day at a trade school of some kind and a half day at high school. And I have other students who do a half day at a community college. My own daughter took advanced math and English at a local university, not the community college. She was the first one to do that because I said she's twice exceptional. She has a genius IQ. She doesn't need to go to community college. She needs advanced math and English at a local university, and the school district paid for it. And the way I did that is I had the gifted coordinator from the State Department of Education attend her IEP meetings every year. She had been grade skipped in math and English every year. And so when she ran out of math and English at the school district, they paid for her to go to a university, not the community college, because we had been able to make the case that she was much more advanced. and
Right.
needed university level courses, and the school district paid for it.
Yeah,
So it
we're
works
very
both ways.
fortunate in our high school. They have a lot of programs already built in. They have a technical college called MTech that runs programs through the school that they pay like $15 for a year, and they can get
Yeah.
different certifications. We have lots of concurrent enrollment that are through a local university, not through a community college, so they can do those. So, but if you don't see something that works for your kids, you can go seek it out. There
Yep.
is always more options.
So that's the issue. Almost every school district here has relationships with community colleges, and you can take those courses while you're in high school. But I wanted something better. So
Right.
I fought for it, and we got it.
Yep.
So that's really important to know, that you don't have to settle for what your school offers you. This is the most important back to school
And
advice.
if you ever hear the phrase, well, this is how we do it, you will make Nicole and Susan very angry. No, there is no, this is how we do it. This is the way it's done.
It is an individualized education plan. They haven't had your kid before. They haven't done it yet.
That's what we
all of the things we're talking about.
That's nice. Well, that's not going to work. So we better figure something else out.
That's correct. And so I think all the advice we're giving you, the accommodations we've talked about, finding the ways to get your child the individualized support they need, whether that's in passing period, whether that's with their backpack, whether that's using a laptop instead of binders, taking notes online, getting everything sent to you electronically. My kid went to a private school for kids for middle school because she had been so unsuccessful at the twice exceptional program in the middle school that our public program offered. And we went to the private school that said 40% of their kids were twice exceptional. And I said, she does not write by hand. She only types. And they said, well, that's not fair to other students because they don't have computers. And I said, I don't care. That's their parents' problem. My kid doesn't write by hand. And I have to tell you, I came back maybe 6 years later advocating for a client at that school. And now suddenly every student in that school was given an iPad to work on. And that woman who was her 8th grade English teacher is now head of the middle school program and apologized to me.
Oh, that's great.
Yes. She apologized.
I haven't gotten that. I have had well, I know a lot of kids who would need that then. And I said, well, then their parents should request an evaluation.
I have another really good story from that school. So this is a school for kids with learning differences. Every kid there has learning issues. 40% of the kids were identified as twice exceptional. And so my daughter was a very avid reader, as am I, very fast reader. So they were reading a book and they saw Aviva was reading ahead because she's a much faster reader than most people.
Right.
So they Xeroxed the book, which is illegal. And they were giving her one chapter at a time to read. So she wouldn't read ahead. So she came home. I had the book in my home library and she read it in one day. It's like they never thought she could go to a library or that we might have it in our home and she would have just read it. No, they tried to literally illegally Xerox this copyrighted book. And so she read the whole book. It was like she took it as a challenge.
Of course.
Not to read ahead. And I tried to explain, like this teacher, it was a young teacher, but this is something I'm really talking about this now for back to school. Teachers who are not used to twice exceptional students who are both gifted and have disabilities, ADHD, learning disabilities, autism. Most of them have all of those at the same time. right?
Right.
Teachers see them as a challenge to their teaching style and try to control it. For example, illegally Xeroxing a book or copying a book and trying to give my daughter one chapter at a time, which my daughter saw as a challenge. And she knew I had the book in my bookcase at home, but libraries exist too,
Right.
You just go borrow the book and read it. She tried to slow my daughter's brain down, which
Yeah,
you
not gonna
can't
work.
do with these kids.
Right.
And exactly. Instead of saying, okay, my daughter's a fast reader. How do we challenge my daughter to get more out of this book?
Right.
And so we as parents, and this is all in my back to school advice, if you have students like this, when you come back to school, I highly encourage you to write a one-pager. One of my colleagues posted this on Facebook just this week, that every year she came to school and at that first IEP meeting, she wrote a one-pager about her child's strengths. And she gave it to the IEP team, and it was a dud. And this is why. So the people who came to the IEP team saw it, but anybody who wasn't at the IEP team, which included
Which is 7 out of your 8 teachers in
right, because only one
secondary.
teacher comes to an IEP team. No other teacher saw it. The principal never saw it. Anybody who wasn't part of that team never saw the sheet that was the strengths. So 7 out of 8 teachers never saw it. The principal never saw it. If there's more than one vice principal, they never saw it. So write that one pager, but make sure you share it with everybody who works with your child. And then follow up. So maybe halfway through the semester, send it out again with an email to the teachers and say, hey, did you all get this? Do you have any questions? Can I, say anything about this? Has there been any challenges for you? Because just giving that to your IEP team won't help your child. It has to go out to everybody who works with your kid, and you have to follow up about it.
Absolutely. And it's you have to managing those situations, right? Because sometimes doing it before the school year starts or right at the beginning of the year, teachers are overloaded with information. So reminding of them of things a few weeks into the school year, having another meeting, can be really important because they are flooded with information at the beginning of the school year. So
another way to do it is the case manager is required to send the list of your child's accommodations to every teacher after that IEP meeting. Perhaps ask them to send your one pager of strengths along with the accommodations, which will make that message different than everybody else's who just gets the accommodations. Send your positive one pager with the list of accommodations. What's important is just to get the word out, and literally a one pager, not single line space in paragraphs, bullets, 6, 8 bullets. This is what my kid is really about. This is their strengths. Make them seem special to the teachers.
Yeah.
Like my kid reads 300 pages an hour and is going to read every chance they get. They used to have to take books away from my daughter, read under the desk while the teacher was talking if it was something she already knew. And they'd have to take the book away and they put it on the corner of the teacher's desk and say, when you finish the work, you can have your book back. Books were like ice cream to my kid.
Love it. Love it.
But if you warn the teachers in advance,
they do have to also learn science and math and just read all the time.
Right. But you have to warn the teachers.
Yeah. And if they know those things about your kid, then your kid they don't view it as just a behavior problem, which is what happens a lot of times with our kids is they just see the behaviors, they don't understand what's really going on. Whereas if you can rope that teacher in, get them on the team, then they're all of a sudden going to see these things as positives for your kid instead of a problem that needs to be solved.
And it comes back to the teachers seeing this as challenging their power and authority in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
we really want to avoid that. We want to engage them in helping our child succeed.
Absolutely. So let's just talk a quick minute about some like setting up the backpack and the back to school supplies and those kinds of things. So what are your best tips for managing the backpack?
Color coding.
Yay!
I'm not kidding. I
No.
really believe in color coding. If you have to carry binders or folders, and this is important, you, the parent, don't assign them. Let your kid choose.
Yes.
You know, if they
we had a
to,
huge debate last week when my kids, we were divvying out all the folders between the two kids of which classes were which color.
It's so important.
And it was hilarious.
And be consistent.
And they were
if they have
so,
to have a spiral notebook and a homework folder. Yep. Let the spiral notebook and the file folder for homework be the same color.
Yes.
So the spiral notebook is blue, then the file folder is also blue. Mm-hmm. And if science is red, then the folder is also red.
No, science is green. We've all agreed that science was green. The problem is that we were out of green folders.
Oh no, you're a failure, yes. Nicole.
Apparently, Walmart didn't have any green folders.
I have to buy that 100-pack of folders.
Yes.
That comes in multicolor.
Yes. Well, we've done that many times. Yes. But
it's so important.
We were out of green.
Kid choose.
Yeah.
Yes. Whoever just wrote, kids' reasoning is funny. You know, each of my kids wanted different colors. So you had to, one kid would pick purple for science and the other
my boys legitimately sat and debated for about 20 minutes about which color was which class. And it was really funny. I was just like, you guys are hilarious.
But I do think it's super important. And, the same thing with the gel pens. If they want different color pens, you have to have that in the pencil case. If it's in the binder, it's really important to color code. And the reason for that is, I'm not just being silly. The reason for that is that over time, it helps your kid be more efficient. If, blue is math and green is science and red is English, right, then it helps them go more efficiently to the materials. So it really does help them create a habit.
Yes.
So it's very important that color coding is not, just for fun.
Enforced on them.
Right.
My boys we've tried a few different styles. One that works for some kids I've seen is an accordion file as opposed to individual
personally folders. We did that too.
Mm-hmm. And then you can, label each section with an in and an out. That didn't work for my boys. They didn't like it. They like the just individual folders, and that's great. Whatever works for them. So you might have to try a few different strategies. The accordion file is nice because it's all together and they can just drop things in as opposed to having to open up a folder to put things in, because sometimes that extra 4 seconds is just not something that the ADHD kid is going to do. So whatever you can do to make it quick and efficient for them and with an in and an out, but, give them some options and let them try it for a while. And if it's not working, don't be afraid to switch things up. So my
daughter did everything on her laptop and liked the accordion folder. My son was taking notes in spiral notebooks. So they were color coded. But then we had an accordion folder for papers that came home from school. Yeah. Because otherwise papers end up crumpled up in the bottom of the backpack because he has severe ADHD and he wasn't medicated till high school. And so everything ended up crumpled in the bottom. So the color-coded folders and spiral notebooks worked for my ADHD son. But my daughter with dysgraphia and autism and other learning disabilities preferred, she had a laptop and then an accordion folder for anything that couldn't be sent electronically.
Mm-hmm.
But we had in her IEP that practically everything had to be sent electronically. She started with I can't remember what it's called, an Alpha something. She started
the Alpha Smarts. Yeah.
the Alpha Smart at the end of first grade.
Mm-hmm.
So she
had those
typing
when I was teaching resource in the elementary.
In second grade. Yeah. So she had an Alpha Smart all through elementary school. And then we purchased a laptop for her starting in sixth grade.
Yeah.
So she never hand wrote anything. All notes were sent to her electronically.
Yep.
So it was, the two of my kids picked different systems. My daughter liked a paper planner. So here's another organizational thing. Almost every middle school now gives kids planners that are school specific.
Almost completely useless.
And as we discussed in our last session, Nicole and I both prefer different types of planners that are meant for kids with executive functioning issues. They're much more useful than the ones schools give. But by middle school, a lot of kids prefer to use digital planners. Mm-hmm. And you can color code those as well. Even Google Calendar, you can put your information in different colors.
Yes.
People don't always know that. And if
I live by that. Everyone in my family has a different color. And you can probably guess what my color is. And
purple.
Yay. And I have picked those colors for my kids on all of our calendars and things for years. And they're like, that I don't like that color. I was like, too bad. In my calendar, you are green. And you will always be green because my brain sees green for you.
So I think since our time is almost up today, I'd love to have another session where we talk about family calendars and planners for the whole family, not just school-related ones, because I have a lot of good suggestions for that too.
Awesome. I'll write it down for next week. We'll talk about family systems.
And just to tell you, I'll be here for next week, the 26th, but I will be away the following week, the 2nd. I'll be away the whole week. So we'll miss that and come back on the 9th.
Yes. Other kind of school supplies, these
the most important
have saved my life for my kids. The friction erasable pens.
I love them.
Because my kids do not like to write in pencil. Dysgraphia, they don't like the way it's smudged. They hate pencils. They don't like having to sharpen it. But these friction erasable pens work exceptionally well.
And my kids
can do different colors and they can still use them on their math because that's the class where the teachers always like, you have to have a pencil. So
my kids solve that with mechanical pencils.
Yeah, but my kids push too hard on mechanical pencils.
And they break.
It is an issue. But when these babies came out, they work really well, way better than the eraser.
Loved mechanical pencils. I bought them boxes of 50 at a time at Sam's Club. But the really key thing for me about school supplies is the way you organize them at home. So what's really important about organizing school supplies at home is to have one designated place. So you cannot have them scattered around the kids' rooms. You cannot have some things in your office and some things in the dining room. There has to be one designated closet or shelves or drawers where the spiral notebooks, the lined paper, the pens and pencils, the Post-it notes, one place where everything can be found. That is the only way that every kid can find everything. If there's some stuff here and some stuff there, and kids have to go around the house for different things, then that's going to not just cause emotional dysregulation, it's going to cause meltdowns. And so like during COVID, I had strict rules for everybody about setting up one table where, every kid had their own spot with their supplies where kids could work. And now in my house, all the supplies, I have a supply closet in my office and everything is in there. Pads of paper, all the spiral notebooks, the accordion files, the file folders, the sticky notes, the black, blue, and red pens. Everything is in one closet. Everybody knows they can go there to get supplies. It is the single best tip I can give parents. Don't make your kids search for stuff.
Yes. Or have to come to you to find it.
Right. There's one place to go to. Everything is available in one place. It is and I know for us ADHD parents, that's hard for us to organize, but it's the best thing you can do for your kids.
Yep.
Put everything in one place. They can find it themselves. You're not part of the issue.
Yeah. Anytime you can offload something from having to go through you, especially if you have kids who are on the oppositional side of things, is better.
Just the other day, my adult son was in the house and he started going through all my desk drawers. I'm like, what are you looking for? I don't even remember what it was. And I'm like, it's in the supply closet. Why are you going through my desk drawers? And yes, they don't have to wait till 5 minutes before they leave. Or even if they are waiting till 5 minutes before they leave to ask, it's always in the supply area,
right?
Whatever area that is. He's looking.
Alrighty, well, we are out of time. So
it was a great discussion, Nicole.
Always a good one. And we have many, many more tips, and I'm sure you all have more questions. So feel free to put them in the comments or on the last post on my feed, or send them to us via our other social media channels so we can answer them in the weeks to come, because this is not an issue that goes away, right?
Not at all. Next week, we'll talk about calendars and family planning that will really help keep you and your kids organized.
Okay, sounds awesome. Thanks so much for being here, and we will see you all next time.
Oh.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. This video is not a substitute for counseling, psychotherapy, medical, or mental health care. The information and advice shared here should not be used in place of any form of diagnosis, treatment, or therapy. Information provided here does not involve diagnosis or treatment of medical or mental or psychological disorders. If you feel the need for professional support, please seek a local professional in your area. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only.